So we're going to bring it back together. I know you could use more time. I can see people busily writing. But once again, we want to hear what you're talking about. So I'm going to start with table 1. If you all could share a bit about what you discussed. Thank you.
Okay, in the line of positive and negative collaboration, the first point is that, when we collaborate, we have more ideas, new learnings, and of course, we have a common objective. So that way, we see that's a positive side of it. And the negative part of it is that there may be clash of interests. And sharing of information, government and private, may lead to jeopardizing the government in some way. And then principle of collaboration, we say common objective we've already mentioned. There's a specific time frame that we look at for solving an issue. And at the same time, monitoring, it comes here because we have to have frequent meetings. And of whatever we discuss, it'll be like that kind of trust has to be built in with transparency. That's it from us.
Thank you. Can we have a round of applause for table 1? Thank you very much. Okay, so I think you all heard that, but it seems like principles include having frequent meeting, I believe you said, having transparency was your last note. I think transparency, and along with that, maybe trust, right? Trust as well. So I think those go hand in hand. If you have full transparency without trust, that also means people may be less willing to share ideas or share issues, right? So I think both together. And the last one was collective, having a collective purpose. Okay, great. Thank you. To table 6.
Good afternoon. I'm Raymond Shira. So at table 6, with regard to principles of collaboration, we have identified a few principles. Some are similar, like the common goal. And also we think that they have to have plan of action, especially with collaboration. And also communication is key. It is very important to communicate as a team if you, since you have to reach a common goal. So we feel that communication is also very essential. And then another one is clarity of roles. There should be clarity of roles and clear division of responsibility. Those are just a few points we want to add. Thank you. Oh, yeah, yes, and yeah. And the key to all this is that leadership. Leadership is, of course, very important. So the kind of input and output that you get from the team will ultimately depend on the leader. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks very much. So I'm hearing a strong theme from both of you all about communication. You've also added about the having a plan of action. I think that also aligns with what you said about having a time frame, right? And by that, do you mean also like a beginning and end? Like we are going to start working on this collaborative project on this date, and we should be done by this date, right? Which also seems like a very important aspect as well. Thank you. I'll take one. Oh, okay, you guys also want to speak. Okay, we'll take 2 more. From you all first, and then.
Okay, most of our points are already discussed. One of the positives which we want to add is actually the outcome. The whole is bigger than the parts. So whatever the individual departments are trying to accomplish in a collaborative approach, we might be able to accomplish, which is much more than what we are individually envisaging. That is one thing. And one negative is, if it is not properly structured, none of the people feel responsible for the outcome, which Mr. Raymond has also earlier echoed similar sentiment, saying that the roles and role division should be very accurate. Otherwise, like, no one will feel responsible for the outcome, and no one will feel motivated to achieve those outcomes. And regarding the principles, most of them like shared vision, shared goals, communication, all these are already shared. One more thing is sharing of resources. Sometimes what happens is we think in silos, we come, we speak, but when it comes to the resources, we will always look at the other department to provide the resources. So we have to find innovative ways of actually pulling our resources together and trying to achieve the bigger picture.
Yeah, those are excellent points, especially very well taken on the last one on resources, and also that point which you also raised about the clarity of roles and clear responsibilities. What are people accountable for? So yes, I guess even in our, oh, and
Yeah,
please go ahead.
No, that's great. I just like wanted to say, can you show those three levels, like managing up, managing out, and managing teams? I think if can we see all the three? Yeah. So I, I think this is a very important thing for all of us. I think so we will be working sometimes, as part of the team members, and sometimes we work, with the peers. We also work with we should know. This is something that I really like and appreciate, the way the thought process has come. So they asked, in fact, the team actually asked me, which of the things should be discussed in today's discussion. So in fact, I have indicated this managing out. I felt, it is so important for our state, for collaboration, working together, because we always have, a kind of I think that's where I think the culture was built. It's not like our fault. We learned from somewhere, like working in silos. Our loyalties are, we don't want allow anybody to, come and give some. Then there will be a pushback. We will not. But how to actually, because the collaboration is so important. How to actually have an important the collaboration, because ultimately the whole, as a government leaders, or government functionaries, we all working for the larger purpose. Are we working for the larger purpose? So how actually we are contributing, how actually each one is contributing. So I think that is a very important thing. So here, managing up, of course, we are going to listen a little bit about like why, especially how to get that authorization. That's again a skill. It requires a lot of. Then managing out, I would see is that, especially the way you have discussed, is something that we require to, build a kind of a constant practice. It's a very tough thing. I'm just saying it's a very tough thing. Because we were brought up like that in the culture. The culture has to change. So that culture would change. I really like somebody has written frequent meetings. I think whoever has said it's a beautiful thing. So with frequent meetings, you build trust. You build like up. So I think it's a very, very important thing. Many times actually we assume things because many. I think this is these principle. I think if we constantly follow, one of the things I would say, there is from the management domain, I would like to bring it here. This today, the Google is I think the most powerful private organization. I think it's billions of dollars. I think it exceeds the revenue of even Apple. So one of the things what they say is that their principle is that, unlike other organizations, they have a quarterly reviews. Many companies, they have annual performance targets and all. They have a quarterly check-ins. So the states actually, we are trying to do, but like how much it is possible, but this weekly check-ins are a great idea to really build that the energy and momentum. So it's a pretty interesting thing, but definitely the collaboration, this is so important, and it requires to maybe a little more thought process, in terms of we should not have any ego, first of all. Most of the time, because of that, actually we would have a lot of problems, honestly. I think so I think it's if we start these things, actually we should learn from the political leadership. In fact, I learn a lot, actually. Like if you look at cabinet and all, the way they talk, the way they, in fact, it's a beautiful way, So the reason why I'm saying this question, political leadership is actually, they know the value of the opportunity, because they get, with a lot of hard work, they get the opportunity. They have to go campaign, work, and then they get how many years? 5 years, if they're lucky. If it's a coalition government, sometimes they don't even get 5 years. But whereas the people working in the government, mostly like, what happens is that there is a kind of a notion of a permanency. This also makes us to feel, why should I collaborate? So I think that is but like, see, my point is that even 5 years or 30 years, I have seen how quickly the time goes. Everyone's time will go very fast. So I think we need to understand that concept of finite time. We also will lose the opportunity, and so I think it's a beautiful opportunity we have. If we also work with that sense of purpose, and with collaboration, I think we can deliver a lot of things. But that's something I wanted to share these few insights. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. And so, seeing our time for today, we actually want to save managing up for tomorrow. So remain excited about that because it's coming, but tomorrow. And for today, we actually wanted to come back to this topic, which Mr. Sampath has actually already started to speak about. I'm going to ask him to come back up to share an example, to illustrate something broad about today, about tomorrow as well, and the whole reason for having this workshop in the first place, which is what is the role of government leaders? What are sort of the methods, the techniques, the approach, the way of thinking that we want to have as leaders in the government on all of these different types of issues. So I'll just ask Mr. Sampath to come up and share an example that illustrates some of what we've been talking about today.
Yeah. Before sharing, I think I'll share this one. Okay. After that, can you put that 6-pillar framework also? Okay. Yeah. So this is an interesting thing, but I'll quickly do. See, you all aware, Meghalaya is the only state which has brought the early childhood development mission. It's a dedicated mission. Wanted to work. So this idea, we have actually maybe I think all of you can do this one. Like Ram, you can, Krishna, all like Rosette, I think all of you can do, and all of you, even doctors, and Ronald, every one of you can do a lot of these things. What I wanted to say is that few examples. If you feel that there is something, is a powerful thing, which can really transform the state, and then you need to really try to work both up, both peers and both teams. All the 3 levels you need to work. So up, how you have to work? Again, you need to take time. You need to take every opportunity to discuss about these ideas. If you don't speak up, how do I know? Dr. Shakina has great ideas, but she should come and meet her principal secretary and say that this is what we needed. I know. And then I'm saying it changes. She said also many things. In fact, she said doctors have to go to the PHC, CSS. Now primary healthcare program is coming up now. So what the point is that we need to take a little extra effort. One of the things I think we should not feel that it is, many times what happens is that we will be slightly hesitant to, communicate this one. But that's one. What we did was we have, the way this has been done was first actually we went, I have taken our chief minister and, we went to Union Minister, Women and Child Development Department, Smriti Irani. So we said, this is a ECD concept. It's a great concept. And, when she joined as Union Minister WCD, first thing what we did was we went to her and we presented to her saying that, can you get this one as a national mission? So we're negotiating for a national mission. So then, of course, from there, we have come back, and then in the state budget, our chief minister has announced it. After that, we have constituted a committee because we don't know about, not many people are aware of it. So we created a PDIA committee, problem-driven iterative adaptation. In fact, that notification still says that this committee functions on the principles of, with the principles of PDIA. So in that committee, we have different line departments because ECD component has health, education, social welfare, everyone, rural development. So we put everyone members and also experts, on this national experts like Dr. Vinita Kaul and some, World Bank experts. So we put everybody as an expert team and we started meeting on a, bi-weekly basis. We started talking about how this mission has to be done. So through that approach, we could able to come out with a kind of a mission. Then actually we went to approach the different donors. World Bank said, we can't actually one at a time loan we can sanction. We don't have the money, so we have gone for the ADB. So I'm just saying World Bank, the functionaries are here. So then we went to the ADB and, we immediately got that. And then parallelly talking to the different departments. As I said, our chief secretary was earlier, he was the education, ACS, principal secretary. So again, taking his inputs, basically everyone felt that I think this is required, and that way this has been built. And today it is a reality. Today, in fact, even Professor Jack Shankoff, who's a kind of a chair for the US National Council, is also, he's the director of Harvard Center for Developing Child. He also actually, virtually came and given a lot of guidance to the state, and also we invited Niti Aayog people. So we are doing what we are doing. This is a good thing. As we might be a smaller state. This is one thing I want to say, but we can also give a lot of learning. A lot of we can actually experiment, and this is what our chief minister also keeps telling. We should actually we should work with that sense of purpose, and if that can happen, that anything and everything is possible. That I would say, honestly. Only thing is that a strong desire to do something to make happen, which can transform the state. If that mission is there, so many things can happen. Just a small example that I wanted to give, but this is where I think the government leaders maybe can actually work both up. I know you have to take time. You should, again, as I said, what is the purpose, what we have? I think it's a great opportunity what we have. I don't think if you compare with political leadership, the opportunity what actually what Dan Honig says, mission bureaucrats, they get is unlimited. I think the kind of a potential is no one can even imagine. So a lot of things can be done. I think there's a good stories, the evidence. I think I could see the lot of evidence that is coming up. But we need to create all the three things, both up, and parallel, and your teams. Thank you. So this is the role of state leadership we kept, one of the things I said, building the political supportability is a very, very key thing. So it's a pretty important thing for sustaining a lot of interventions. But otherwise, of course, it's all there. But you must have seen the state capability, that 6-pillar thing. Okay. So this is what actually we initially designed. In fact, this is what, when we articulated, as I said in the beginning, inaugural session with the Chief Minister, this is the framework that we have come out with for a state capability enhancement. So one is that how actually state can build a responsive systems to ensure that citizen-state relationships are really good. So how actually you are engaging with the citizens, that's something. And then local leadership through problem solving. This is what we are, today we are problem-driven iterative adaptation approach. It's a building leadership and also for problem solving. This is something that each one of us can do. Then the third one is effective use of data and research. This is something, again, ECD is one example. ECD there is a huge research, but unfortunately, none of the states are understanding the value of the research. It's not understanding, but they could not actually visualize or make it into a program that would benefit many people. So there is a research, but that is parked in the research institutions, but that has not come to the practice. Then the data, of course, how to use the effective use of data. A lot of people, especially health department, thanks to Ram Kumar, the mother program, how actually it is being used and effectively. Then granular performance monitoring. This is again a very important thing. In fact, which is so important. In fact, Niti Aayog is actually helping us to really build that granular performance monitoring, which has output-based monitoring systems, and identifying and addressing systemic issues. This is again when I said what are the systemic issues? For example, we found systemic issues, the women's participation, we thought. Let me tell you. And we brought women's reservation through state, all the village employment councils. Now, when we went to the field, we are finding only women. So now we wanted men's participation. Seriously, for village health councils, now our objective is not the women's participation, men's participation. For village employment councils, maybe women's participation is important, but village health councils, it is the men's participation is more important. We have to really see. So I'm just saying systemic issues. If we don't look at the systemic issues, we will fail. We think that things are happening, but it will not happen. So, but when we did this, then the political supportability. What is the political supportability? Is essentially, see, the way our chief minister was talking, the way our chief secretary was talking. This is really, good to hear. In fact, Dr. Sanjeev, who's from the Gates Foundation, he was so happy to listen to that conversation from a political leadership. So that shows, that building that political leadership supportability is also very, very important, because then we can really bring policy changes and, the stability, what you're talking about, a lot of people talking about stability, and the purpose. I think it can happen. So thank you. I hope I have not taken more time.
Thank you very much. And now I'd just like to welcome Professor Michael to leave us with a few final words as well, and then we will break.
Thanks, Rebecca. You've heard plenty from me today, but just wanted to conclude with some main points that I want you to take away and offer my services, so to speak, for those of the, 10% of you who are super keen as a result of what you've heard today. If you want to finish one of those fishbone diagrams tonight in your own time, because you're now super motivated and you're going to not go off and just have a fun time drinking, you're actually going to be all in on finishing off your fishbone diagram. If you want to do that and you would like me to look at it and comment on it and just give you some feedback on it, that's what I'm here for. So you should shamelessly exploit me while you can. So I can't promise to do that if you email it to me in a week, because I will be doing a whole bunch of other different things in a week, but I'm here, and that the Gates Foundation's generosity has put me here, so I'm on their clock, so to speak. So yeah, if you want to do that kind of activity tonight in your own time, I'd be delighted, and I will learn from you by just seeing how you articulate that. I'm offering that because I offered a similar thing to a big program we did online with 300 people like you in Cambodia, mid-level officials who have lots of responsibilities to do all sorts of things. And we ran an online program for these guys, 2 lots of 150 over 16 weeks. That was a long time, right? You've had a crash course in it today, the online version that we did with these guys, which I frankly thought was not going to be that fun, because I thought, oh, who wants to stare at a screen, all the Zoom stuff? We've all done that. I thought it was going to be really awful, but it was fantastic, and they loved it. And because we put a lot of emphasis on getting them to do this work, they didn't get their cute little certificate until they, as a team, had actually gone through all those kind of worksheets. And it was, I initially thought, oh, geez, I really want to read all these things. But it's Cambodia. I've had a long engagement with Cambodia. It's a tough place, coming out of a really awful recent history, as I'm sure you are aware, and seeing their generation of leaders engaging everything from tax reform to more effective COVID responses to improving the quality of education in their schools, and just seeing them go through all of these different steps, and also having the toolkit translated into Khmer. They were so enthusiastic about this, they insisted that we have it translated into Khmer. So that's magical, seeing your work in Sanskrit. It was fantastic. So part of what I'm saying, not just in terms of, I think we're trying to be helpful to you, is to see that, I want you to see that what you're doing here is part of a bigger global initiative. I've mentioned Georgia and irrigation. I've mentioned Cambodia on its own public sector reform. We just had an independent review done on the PDAA work, which we were very, as you might expect, a little bit nervous. But when you are taking seriously what you do, you've got to allow yourself to be assessed independently. And there's a summary of that online. I can send Rebecca and Pratik, and if they can forward it to you if you're interested, looking at this question of public financial management reform. That's a big issue in many African countries as well. So you get more prosperous, you've got more money to deal with, and you can't just pay your public servants in envelopes on a Friday afternoon, like some countries are still doing, right? But changing that system to a whole massive, big computerized thing can take a long time. In Indonesia, it took 17 years to transform their public administration. Went through 5 federal elections. They survived. You would have thought at some point along there, some opportunist would come along and say, those idiots that came before us didn't know what they were doing. I know what we're doing. We're just going to dump it. And all that hard work would have gone. No, they built this authorizing environment that survived 5 presidential elections in order to be able to pull that off. So there's been a lot of work in Africa, in particular on public financial management systems and reforming them using the PDA approach. And that was the one that was reviewed. So there's that kind of work. We have when we teach this stuff at the Kennedy School, we have whole classes of students that are working on primarily domestic problems in the United States. But as you saw with Dan's example from Detroit, just because you're rich doesn't mean you can do stuff. The tragedy of many rich countries at the moment is that they're just vastly underperforming in their public sectors, given the scale of the challenges they confront and the existential importance of getting those things right. And so the opening takeaway that I started my input today with was the looming, or the already present, but the looming challenge of implementation going forward. It's not going away. We have to do something about this. We can go with the standard approach. We can go with the business as usual model, and we know how that will end. It will end disappointingly. It will claim success. It will be able to pretend that it has succeeded. It will count all the nice training sessions it has held. It will count the amount of software uploads that have been done. It will look at the number of consultants they've hired to advise, and that will all look nice in a report and look like it was busy and earnest. But all it will have done is change what the system looks like rather than what it can actually do. And in the book, we call this term isomorphic mimicry. There's another weird word for you today. Isomorphic mimicry is when you change something, but you don't actually change what it can do. You just change it. You put camouflage on it. You put new wallpaper on over all the cracks, and at a distance, it looks like it's doing fine. Or like a paper bridge. From a distance, a paper bridge looks like a real bridge until you actually drive a truck over it and it collapses. A lot of the reforms that are being done, and the ones that I've had the disappointment of actually documenting, have been ones where people claimed success on the basis of having produced things that looked nice, that were eco-friendly, that didn't have any obvious corruption associated with them, and that counted as success, but had no actual effect on changing the quality of the justice system, for example, in several of the Pacific Island countries, where millions of dollars have been spent trying to enhance the justice system by building a new courthouse, for example, which looks great, photographs fantastically, was built with local materials, hired by local labor to build it, created jobs. Everybody loves that. But did it actually solve the problem it was designed to solve? Not even close. Right? So the tragedy of this business is that you can get away with doing a lot of things that don't solve the problem. You can create things that satisfy the bureaucratic system we've set up that decides what counts as the question and what counts as the answer. And so the second big takeaway from today, I hope, is that you recognize that fundamental question of how questions and answers are determined has a very powerful effect on our behavior, on what the imperatives are of the systems that we work for. Those imperatives drive the logic of why we do what we do and how we do what we do. And it's that we're ultimately trying to change. But we can only do that, I think, by imagining a different alternative, by believing that an alternative is possible, by demonstrating then that, or wagering, as I said before, that doing this in a better way can actually be better because it is solving problems, because it is consistent with how we learn everything else that's really hard in life, because we try, because we're not so good at it, because we come back and try again, and over time our team gets really good. That book that Dan mentioned at the start of his presentation, Patchwork Leviathan, it may be a bit expensive. See if you can find a copy online somewhere, but Erin opens that book with a discussion about the Ministry of Finance in Ghana. And she says, why is it that when I walk past the Ministry of Finance in Ghana at 9 p.m. at night, the lights are still on while every other department closed down at 4 o'clock? And are they getting paid more? No. Did they go to better universities? No. Right? What is the difference? They have built this culture around performance. They have built a culture around enjoying what they do in the service of enhancing the effectiveness of their own organizations. And it's just, and they bat for each other when someone has to go on leave or when someone goes on vacation. They've already figured out how they're going to substitute for that person, and they don't just let the whole system grind to a halt when someone moves on or retires. They've anticipated all of that. So there are these really good examples out there. And but the final point, though, I guess, is we can't run these systems on heroes, right? The kinds of examples, even the positive deviance examples, are really good to know about. They are inspiring, and we often need inspiration because so much of this is disappointing and sometimes heartbreaking and tragedy. But the system will work when it works for everyone, not just when it requires super people and supermen and superwomen to run the show. That's not sustainable. There will always be superstars, but most of us are average by definition. And the system has to work most of the time, mostly well for most people. And that goal, that more modest goal, perhaps that more modest expectation that we might set for ourselves, if that was actually achieved, that would change the world. So it's not trying to manage down. It's not trying necessarily to deflate what we are, or the aspiration of what we're trying to do. It's trying to be realistic and being honest about what we currently can do, and then having some credible sense of what better will look like, cognizant of the fact that what counts as better is going to be very different for different people. So I conclude where I started by encouraging you to spend half an hour, say, on your toolkit book, and then go through either the fishbone diagram or the AAA change space, just to try and look at what you're thinking about. And if you want me to comment on that, I'll come over maybe an hour early tomorrow morning and set up shop somewhere in here, and happy to look over it. And if we've got one person, you get the hour. If we've got 30 people, you'll get 2 minutes. Thanks.